Hello and welcome to episode 274 of the Paint or the Minis podcast, the show where you can listen to the widest range of guests that I can convince to chat to me about the tabletop gaming hobby. Let's paint all our minis together as we listen along. This week I talked to Mark about our feeling on general health and diet. It's about this time of year that a lot of us have overindulged over Christmas, and with New Year just gone, Happy New Year by the way, we may have potentially been thinking about some New Year's resolutions as we sit on a sofa and finish off the last chockies in the tin, Quality Street or whatever it is you're chowing down on. So we can potentially reflect on what we do and have done and what we could do potentially in the future. For me personally, about 10 years ago, I started to really question and reflect on life choices in terms of diet and general health. I've tried so many different things over the years, keeping what has seemed to have a positive effect and ditching things that I felt didn't help enough. There's far too many things to talk about in just one show, and equally I'm not some sort of health guru or qualified health professional. That's very important to note. This is just my thoughts and my opinions on stuff, and Mark's also. I just wanted to chat to Mark about it, just because it's general interest for me, and if it gives you pause for thought, then great, and if it validates some of the things that you've been doing in your life, then that is amazing too. Equally, if you want to chat about this any further, you can come and hang out on our Discord server. There's a link to that in the description, and next week it's going to be back to our regular episodes. Just a final note on the health and the fitness stuff. One of the key central component parts of anything that I've done in terms of my health is mostly things that you choose not to do as opposed to do, and things that actually save you money or cost very little as opposed to something that you can buy and pay for. That's just like a personal thing. I think there's too many snake oil salesmen that are looking to sell us stuff to solve our problems, when I think personally it kind of comes from within. It's a lot of things that come from within, and so if I can find things that save me money or that are free, all I need to do is not do something, then it's best. That's been the best situation where it's like I just need to not do something, and that's either free or actually saves me money. And I've found so many different things that I've done and I continue to do daily that save me money and just requires me to not do something. I think that's very efficient when it saves you money, and it's something that you don't do. It's the best. Don't forget, I've mentioned before just now that you can join us on our Discord server to chat about hobby stuff or general life stuff. If you need to contact me for any reason, you can email paintalltheminis@gmail.com. I don't plug this enough, but we've got our paintalltheminis.co.uk website with a whole bunch of painting tutorials and different bits and bobs you can go and have a click on. And I think that's enough of the pre-ramble. Happy New Year. Let's go.
Paint all the minis that you can. And when you paint your minis, listen to that podcast with Dan Adams, that is.
I know what you're thinking. Did he paint 6 armies or only 5? Well, to tell you the truth, in all this excitement, I've kind of lost track myself. But being that this is Paint All the Minis, the best place for painting and hobby on the internet, and people aren't going to bite your head clean off for posting, you got to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
So, hey, I am here once again with Mr. Mark. How's it going, Mark?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Doing okay. I stuttered there a little bit. Not sure if you noticed it, because I thought about flinging a casual insult at you, but I thought, no, I won't this time. I'll just call you Mark.
Oh, thank you. That's really good of you. Oh, I feel very privileged.
Yeah, what's going on in your world? How is the autumn into winter treating you?
Yeah, the autumn's all right. It's we've gone past that stage where it's all kind of beautiful colours and the leaves are lovely. And now the trees are all a bit bare. It's gone quite cold here in the UK last few days. It's a bit of a cold snap, and we had some heavy rain last week that I thought our village often floods, which kind of renders you only able to get to the shops on foot. So, which I personally don't mind, but everyone else thinks is a nightmare. But so autumn is definitely upon us.
Nice. What about looking forward to Christmas? So as we release this, Christmas will have been done. This is going to be the first show of the new year, and there's reasons for that we'll get into.
Okay.
But I'll tell you what you're expecting for Christmas, and you'll be able to listen back to this and see if Santa was good to you.
What am I expecting? Well, nothing particularly. I'm terrible at coming up with ideas and sharing them. And my wife always says, what was it you wanted? And what have you got any ideas? And I can only think of, how about books? And it's like, you've got too many books. The bookshelves are groaning and you've got books that you still got to read. So, I'm quite easy to buy for insofar as I kind of say, I don't really mind. I don't really want anything. If anything, what I'd really like for Christmas would be opportunities to go and do things in real life, whether that's go and see a play at a theatre, or whether it's to go for a weekend away or a meal out. That's kind of, I've got to that point in my life where I don't need any more things. I just want experiences.
That's cool. And so what would be a good experience? You mentioned shows there, so you're a big show guy. What would be a great experience for you?
Yeah, no, I'm not really, I don't like musical theatre and stuff like that particularly. So I think that's what people assume when you sort of say go to the theatre. I'm thinking more maybe go and watch some kind of unusual play or a bit of Shakespeare or something quite highbrow like that. I like to think I'm an intellectual, whether I am or not, I don't know. But
no idea what's going on, but it sounds good.
Exactly. No, I like a bit of that. And I also, opportunities just to go to new places. Don't have to be particularly far away places. But that I think recently we've kind of got to the position where before, when the kids were younger, we really didn't have a lot of money, and the idea of going away, it was pretty difficult to do. But we've now got that position where we've just got a little bit that we could say, we could go visit somewhere that we've never been to before. We can stay over in a hotel for the night and just make a couple of days of it. And it's something we do sort of perhaps a few times a year, and it's nice just to go places you've never been before. Not far away places, just places in the UK generally, but it's just nice to experience what's actually perhaps on your doorstep.
Yeah, that's really good. And to have that ability to stay over as well, because you can kind of stay later at the place you're going to, or maybe arrive earlier at the place you would be going to just visit for a day. That's cool, man. That's good. Well, hopefully you get that, something like that over Christmas, either an intent or you get like a little voucher or something that you can spend. That's awesome. But we're here to talk about something specific. So a while ago, a good long while ago, we talked about how gaming might potentially be used to kind of, to fulfill your life in some ways, and we kind of talked around this idea of sustainable gaming, and I think we talked about kind of fitness and things like that before, but I wanted to kind of come together and talk about how you kind of keep yourself, from your perspective, kind of fit and healthy, because I think it's something that is important to all of us, and it seems strange at first to think about this as a hobby podcast and talk about it, but there's a few presumptions that I've made, and this is not coming from you, so if people are angry that it's all me, but I'm not really a big stat guy, but I delved into the stats of where the listeners come from, and the main listenership comes from the US. That is our number one listenership, and also it comes from the UK. And then as I kind of delved into that a little bit more, I kind of thought, well, who's going to be listening? What's the kind of the cross section of society that's listening to us? And it's mostly males. And then I kind of looked at stats of obesity and overweight levels, and there's quite a high level of obesity and people that are overweight in those countries, in those genders, and especially if you factor in the kind of age that people are likely to be that are listening to this show, you're probably going to be 30 plus, 28 plus, probably maybe a little bit of 40 plus. And so one thing that I kind of think about when we think about health and fitness is whatever we're doing right now, it obviously isn't really working, because there's so many people that are considered to be overweight for various different reasons. And so I wanted to talk to you about it. It's something that I'm very passionate about in my profession, but it's also something that I've been dabbling and messing around with for coming up to a decade now. And I wanted to talk to you about it because I know that you're very passionate about this too, and I want people to maybe listen along or equally opt out, just for some things that we do, some things that we believe, that kind of help us. And if it just gives people food for thought or a starting point for their own particular journey, I think it'll be something that's got value.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think in terms of the demographics as well, you sort of know that the people listening to the podcast are, actively interested in something which is sedentary as a hobby, which is fine. To have lots of, to have things in your life where you're sat at a table, not a problem. But it's just, that about this group, don't you? So that's also kind of interesting, because if those people are doing lots of things where they're sat down, but maybe not doing enough things when they're moving about, then that kind of matters too.
So it's very important to note before we begin, we are not, well, I'm definitely not, you can tell me if you are, I'm not a trained medical professional in this field.
I'm not either, no.
Yeah, and I'm not
completely untrained, which is very against regulation.
And we are not looking to kind of give any firm, solid advice on certain things. This is just how we see it from our perspectives, and I don't know if we're going to challenge each other on our perspectives or whether we're going to agree with each other from our perspectives. We haven't shared any notes beforehand. It's just very much a conversation on our personal journeys about things that we found that maybe have worked for us and that we appreciate, even if that might just be potentially a placebo effect. And equally, we can talk about some things that we maybe tried that didn't really work out for us. And if we mention some things that we tried and didn't work out for us, that's not in any way a criticism of that. Because if there's one thing that I've known through my own personal journey throughout my entire life pretty much, but specifically over the last kind of 9 years, going into 10 years, is that everyone's body is different. Everyone's circumstances is different, and what some person might say works for them or doesn't work for them is not typical across an entire demographic of people. I think you probably agree with that, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But the first thing I want to talk about is recognizing what indicators have you had in your life, or do you have in your life, in terms of like general health and general fitness? Is there certain things that you look for to say that, yeah, I'm in a good spot, or nah, I maybe need to do something? And when did this whole fitness or health thing kind of begin for you?
Okay, so it's probably, I think, like you say, we haven't compared notes prior to this, and I'd say that we've probably got relatively different perspectives on this, you and I, because I would say that, and hopefully my lack of knowledge and insight into it is kind of, sort of a different way of looking at it, because I think that I've been quite fortunate in the sense that I've always had a relatively similar or stable level of interest in keeping a certain level of healthiness, and that has not really varied massively in terms of my interest, and it also hasn't particularly varied massively in terms of how my body has reacted. As I've got older, I haven't particularly gained any weight. I haven't particularly found that there's things that I can't do, or any kind of mobility issues crept in or anything like that. So I think that I'm quite lucky, and it's meant that my perspective isn't one of particularly looking or thinking about it. I'm quite a passenger to it all. But that's not to say that it's not something that I care about, but maybe in a slightly less active way, if that makes any sense.
It makes total sense. And that's, I would say, personally, from my perspective, that's quite rare, I would say. From my perspective, because the people that I've spoken to, people that I bump into, people that I talk about this stuff, tend to kind of follow a similar pathway, where it's like, as a kid, maybe you perceive that you are healthy and perceive that you are fit because you're not overweight. And so you might get into certain habits with eating, certain habits with drinking, certain habits with, drinking sodas and different things like that. And when you're young and maybe things are different in terms of, hormone levels and activity levels and things like that, you kind of maybe fall into some poor habits. And then as you kind of get older into the 30s and then maybe into the 40s, decisions that you've made a long time ago and habits that you formed a long time ago start to catch up with you. And then obviously as your body changes size and muscle mass might potentially change. The effects of the certain habits that you've got into start to come to the fore more, and then it's very difficult to kind of break habits, and it's very difficult to change lifestyles because that lifestyle and that habit has been embedded for a number of years, and it's very difficult to break, if that makes sense. That's generally the trend and idea that
I that's what I see around me, and therefore when people are sort of saying about needing to reverse trends or change patterns, I understand it, but I don't necessarily completely understand it because it's not something that I've really thought about, and I think that some of that is just pure fortune and I think an element of just like you say, it's simply whether you did or didn't form certain habits. And that's quite an odd thing to think about because so many of those decisions aren't particularly active at the time, are they?
Yeah, so if I think about a few things that I've done in the past that I try to certainly and definitely avoid, just as an example before we go back to my indicators, is that if we take, there's like a certain brand of pizza in the UK that's called Chicago Town Pizza. Are you aware of Chicago Town pizzas?
Frozen ones,
they're like these little frozen pizzas that come and you put it in a microwave. And I used to have like a lot of those. When I say a lot, maybe like one a week, one every 2 weeks. And it would be like a fancy tea, right? Like, Chicago Town Pizza, right? You bang it in a microwave for 3 minutes or whatever. Or the Findus frozen lasagna, right? The ready meal lasagna. Yeah. So I kind of like would eat either one of those a week. Right? Does that make sense? Because they were cheap, they were quick, they were hot. It felt like it was like a decent thing. But now as an adult, I see those things as non-foods. I see those as non-food. I see them as ultra-processed, chemical-filled non-foods, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But at the time, I wasn't even thinking on that level. I wasn't even thinking of those in those ways. I'd be like, I can get 3 of those lasagnas for £3, and I can get like a pack of like 3 to 5 of those Chicago Town pizzas for like a couple of quid. And then that's like loads of meals sorted, right? Does that kind of make sense? I just wasn't I wasn't really thinking of where that food is derived from. I wasn't really thinking of what might that food might potentially contain. I wasn't even aware of that world. It was just something that was in a supermarket, so obviously it can't be that bad. It was the government was allowing it, so surely it can't be that bad. But now, as I've got significantly older, I've got a whole different perspective on that. But we will get to that, if that can make sense.
Just out of interest, was it that at the point when you were kind of a young adult? Is that sort of age range? Yeah. Okay.
Like kind of late school, so like age 16, last year of school, and kind of move into young adulthood and things like that. But anyway, so my indicators of general health and fitness, and these are indicators that I've formed over a number of different years, and I think it's important to create your own set of indicators about how you feel and how you perceive yourself to be. And the first one for me is that I use BMI as an indicator, so body mass index. So I use that as one indicator. I think it's problematic to use BMI as the only indicator. Another indicator that I use is my kind of height to waist ratio. So generally speaking, if your circumference of your waist is more than half your height, it's not necessarily catastrophic that in its individual sense, but generally speaking, people whose waist is bigger than half their height are more susceptible to certain diseases and illnesses and things like that. So I use BMI, I use height to waist ratio. I also use my clothes. I've got clothes that are all largely the same size, trousers especially. And if those clothes begin to feel tight or less comfortable, that's an indicator. And I've got a specific one t-shirt. Which is like a fitted t-shirt. And it's like, if I wear that t-shirt and it doesn't feel comfortable, that's an indicator. And then I also have 3 fitness indicators. So I run 10 kilometers and I always want to keep that under 58 minutes. So if I can run 10 kilometers under 58 minutes, if I can run 5 kilometers in 23 minutes or under. And then also there's a thing called a Cooper run, which is just 12 minutes of running or movement, and it's how far you can travel in 12 minutes. And if you can run a certain distance for your gender and age, you fall into a certain category, and that's available online. So I'm in the excellent category for my age and gender. So those are the indicators that I use. And then also just kind of like generally speaking, kind of like qualitative is just like how I feel in terms of energy, how I feel, after I've had a meal, how I just feel kind of generally in life, and those are my key indicators. So as I mentioned, those ones, do you have any indicators, or do you just literally just do whatever and whatever occurs?
Yeah, purely the qualitative stuff, actually. It's something that I've never really particularly thought about. I think some of it comes from just the way that my brain works and the kind of way that I like to think about things. I'm not massively a kind of data numbersy kind of a guy, so there's an element of that. And then I think the other thing of it is I think it's about the fortunate position I found myself in, where there has been a sort of lack of change. And so as a result, I haven't kind of thought, I better measure that, because sometimes you think about measuring things because something's changed, don't you? Yeah. So I think if the qualitative data was changing and I was feeling differently, then maybe I'd be more inclined to sort of think about the quantitative stuff. The height to waist ratio thing is interesting. I've heard of that. And again, that's kind of, I think the one thing with those kind of things, and like you say, they're not total indicators, are they? They don't tell you everything. Is I would probably say that there's no way that I can be the same as I was, even if I might appear to be the same shape and size as I was. And I think that that's probably something, as I kind of move into middle age, that I need to be more mindful of, is kind of what's on the inside and how that is, and that's harder to see. And I think that's where maybe like a slightly more medical approach might come in, as you start getting towards the point where you might have, health checks on a more regular basis as you sort of approach 50 or whatever, then that might be different too. So interesting stuff though.
Yeah, and that's a really important note as well, is that we don't necessarily want to equate health and fitness with a certain body shape or a certain perception of a body, because there's many people that I know that would consider themselves to be fit based solely on the perception of their body shape. And just because you may appear to be thin, just because you might appear to be within a certain weight range, that doesn't necessarily mean that you are healthy, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you are fit, because like I said at the start, everyone's body is different and everyone's body responds in different ways. And there's quite a lot of people that I know who would say, yeah, I'm fit, I can still fit in the same size pants as I did when I was in college, so everything's fine. But they don't do any physical activity, and they don't have what I would consider to be like a healthy diet. And so just because you appear to be fit doesn't necessarily mean that you are fit and healthy yourself, right?
Yeah, and I suppose contrasting with that is the other way around, where there are people who might not necessarily visually appear to look like an athlete, but their level of physical fitness is particularly high. Maybe they're in a really great place in terms of, the supporting factors like, diet, mental health, happiness, and so forth. And so their overall health levels maybe exceed perhaps what you might perceive from the outside.
Yeah. But it's really important to note. So, I started this journey more so probably when I hit 30, and I started to notice that my body was changing, despite still doing a lot of physical activity. And it started me to question a whole bunch of stuff. And this was when I was living in America. So when I went to live in America, which is a really great example, because I went to live in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which is the nicest food that you could have, I think. Just super, super tasty, rich food, gumbo, jambalaya, etouffee, a whole bunch of foods that are just super crazy tasty that you want to eat a lot of, because it's just like really, really good. And so I found that I was kind of like, my body was changing, and it started giving me pause for thought. And it started me down this kind of rabbit hole of just thinking about like all the stuff that we do and all the things that we perceive to be good. What is that based on? Like what is that? What is it true? And one of the things that I started to think about is that we have 3 meals a day, and we generally accept that 3 meals a day is considered to be the norm. But I was finding that I was only eating breakfast because it was breakfast time, and I was only having lunch because it was lunchtime, and then I was only having dinner because it was dinner time, and it made me think about my childhood. And I remember when I used to come home from school, and I used to say to my mum at the time, like, I'm hungry. She's like, well, dinner's not till 7, so just have a snack. And I was like, yeah, but I'm hungry now. And I didn't want the snack. I wanted the dinner, but the dinner wasn't ready. And I had to wait for this time of 7 p.m. to eat. And as I kind of thought about that as an adult, I thought that was quite strange, that I was eating just because it was the eating time. And I was waiting till a prescribed certain hour of the day in order to eat, instead of listening to my body. And that was probably the first step that I made, is that I started to reflect on, if I eat 10 times in a week, and I obviously eat more, but let's just say I eat 10 times in a week. Out of those 10 times that I eat, how many of those 10 times am I actually eating because I'm hungry, compared to I'm eating just because it's a meal time, right? What do you think about that?
I think it's, I understand it. I suppose there's two elements going on. One of the things that I think is probably quite significant is the social ritual of a mealtime. And so I suppose that there's a risk that if people are only eating, so if playing the devil's advocate, if you flip the thinking of I'm going to eat when I'm ready to eat rather than I'm going to eat when it's mealtime, some people might be encouraged to eat too much or too frequently, and some people might be encouraged to start seeing food as purely fuel rather than part of a social ritual, which can be of value in its own right. So I suppose that would be the only kind of bit of caution I'd say on that for me. But I do agree that the timetable of eating and the expectations around how much to eat and what to eat, a lot of it is carved out from a kind of post-industrial kind of expectation about the amount of food that people would be needing to consume and when they could consume it, and the kind of food that would be healthy or not healthy. And you're right to almost rip up the rule book a bit, I think, and say, well, actually, let's strip it back and what's right for me. I suppose you just got to be, I know you're the kind of person who would think about it quite carefully, but I suppose it's just that it's interesting, isn't it? Because I just think that the whole thing around defying conventions and ripping up the rules is where you get new thinking and you can start making, developments. But it's also an area where it can lead to people doing the wrong thing. So how did you manage to, by sort of thinking I want to eat when I want to eat, regulate that appropriately? Well,
before we talk about how did I regulate, I kind of thought about, does it make sense and is it logical?
Okay,
and my body doesn't know that supermarkets exist, right? My body doesn't know that there's this chain of stores called 7-Eleven that I can go and I can just get this food. Like I don't believe that my body knows that. My body,
I see what you're saying. Yeah,
my body is working on the same principles of millions of years ago. So I kind of thought about, if we went back to 5,000 BC. How many of those people are going to be eating 3 meals a day? How many of them are going to have access to do that? And I'm not saying that 3 meals a day is bad. That's not what I'm saying. There's lots of healthy people. There's lots of fit people that have 3 meals a day. I'm not saying nobody should eat 3 meals a day. It's terrible. I'm talking about my own journey. And so as I kind of look back on that, I thought, it doesn't make sense to eat 3 meals a day, because I think the eating of 3 meals a day is a fairly recent social construct, as opposed to something that is fundamentally true and that we need to do as human beings, right? So it kind of like that started the process of thinking, I'm actually not eating because I'm hungry. And when I actually think about it logically, I don't think that the eating of 3 meals a day is something that's consistently occurred, and I think we did all right without it. So that was the first step. So what I started doing is I just started skipping meals if I wasn't hungry. Like that was the first thing, and it was super easy. It was like, I'm just gonna listen to my body, and I'm gonna have some food available, and whenever I feel like I'm hungry, I'm gonna eat. Right, so I just found that it was actually really easy. I never have breakfast. I never have breakfast. The only time that I have breakfast now is if there's a certain breakfast item that I want to eat at breakfast time, like pancakes very rarely, but I have pancakes. A bacon sandwich, very rarely, but I have some. And then maybe like once or twice a year have like a full English breakfast. But I'm not actually eating those things at breakfast time because I'm genuinely hungry. I am never hungry at breakfast time, or very, very, very rarely hungry at breakfast time. So that was the easiest thing to do. That was the easiest thing to do. And I also noticed that when I would have lunch at school, when I was working, I quite often feel quite tired after that. So I wasn't really that hungry. And then I would have lunch and I'd feel quite tired and quite lethargic and quite sluggish. So that was the next step, to kind of take lunch away. So naturally I started falling into what people would now call intermittent fasting, just because I wasn't hungry at those times. But if I was hungry at that time, then I would have some food and I would have that available and have it whenever it occurred to me. Sorry, you were going to say something?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that you used a word there, which I think I know why you used it, because it's just almost like it's the kind of go-to word. I think you said I skipped breakfast, and it's kind of interesting because I'm thinking actually what you're describing is not skipping breakfast. You're describing not needing breakfast, and that is kind of fundamentally different, isn't it? Because I think skipping is an act of sacrifice. It's an act of not having when you need, and that isn't kind of what you're talking about. You're talking about satiating your need on your own terms, aren't you? And that's kind of interesting because I have breakfast every day. I just have just porridge made with water.
Mr. Hollywood.
But it's good, and it for me, I find that is perfect for my metabolism and works well for me.
Well, let's talk about metabolism real quick. Sorry, and then you can jump back in. So, people talk about metabolism, right? And what we have is we have this thing called basal metabolic rate, and your basal metabolic rate is nothing to do with herbs. It's to do with the amount of energy your body needs each day to sustain its current amount of cells. So your basal metabolic rate is the amount of energy that your body needs just to stay alive, stay functioning, right? And you talked about metabolism there as well. Sorry, jump back into you.
So that day would then be the next. So if you met that rate, you would then the next day would be the same, and you could sustain that, and you could do the same every day from there on. Is that the point, or or does the rate have some kind of external factor in its changing with aging and so forth?
So you can change your metabolic rate. But basically, think about it in terms of a fire, right? So if you had a fire of a certain size, you would need to add a certain amount of fuel to that fire each hour or each day in order to keep the fire at the same size. So the amount of cells that you have in your body can fluctuate, but the amount of live cells that you have in your body dictates your basal metabolic rate. So somebody that's got high
to something else rather than fixed for all time.
Cool. So if you have a larger amount of muscle cells, for example, then you would need to supply more fuel, because you've got more live cells that need to to maintain their existence for that 24-hour period or whatever.
Okay, so I'm guessing, and that change would happen over a relatively gradual way, wouldn't it? Yeah. Okay, cool. So you're never really going to need to suddenly leap up or down in terms of what you're having. Sorry, go on. So in terms of when you started not having breakfast and lunch, then were you consuming perhaps a similar quantity of food over the course of the day, but just in a different time frames?
No. The amount of food that I was having on any one given day was drastically reduced. So that's what started to tip the balance back in my favor. As I kind of got into mid-30s, it was like, oh well, I'm actually eating these foods at these times that I'm only doing that because of a habit, right? I'm only doing that because of a social kind of ritual that you mentioned. Like, I was working with my wife at the time. She works in an office, and like we'd meet for lunch, but there was nothing to do with that was to do with food. It was just there was food there. So I kept on meeting her for lunch. I just wasn't eating the lunch. I was having a cup of hot water. So I still felt I was consuming something. But I was, I wasn't tricking my body. I was just having some hot water, because it just kind of felt like I was participating.
I understand that, and I think that matters. That because I think that's kind of was my original point when I was sort of playing devil's advocate. Okay, if you dismantle the kind of social elements and the things that are great about food, then you could end up having a slightly scientific relationship with it, which isn't necessarily what you want to have as the outcome.
But I also thought about, like, when I was having lunch at work, I wasn't really enjoying the food, if that kind of makes sense. I wasn't really
That does
genuinely
make-
sitting down and going, "Oh, this is super tasty." It was like school
You're wolfing
canteen.
it down.
Yeah, it was like school
Yeah.
canteen food. That's never really exciting anyway. So I love eating. Like, eating is one of my favorite pastimes. One of my favorite hobbies. It's one of the main reasons we go on holidays to different places, because the ritual of food and what people eat in certain different places, that really interests me, and I love doing that. So I actually found that I prefer to eat in a very private setting. With an infinite amount of time, and obviously it's not an infinite time, but I don't want to put myself say, I've got to wolf this down. I've got a sandwich in 10 minutes, so I've got to eat this sandwich on the way to my next meeting. It took away like the kind of the things that I love about food the most. It wasn't particularly cared for, well thought out. It wasn't particularly tasty. It was just a time that people would eat, and so I found that was quite easy. And it's very important to note is that you say you have breakfast, and do you have 3 meals a day?
Yes, I do. I always have, really. I think it's, for me, having an opportunity to have some lunch, and I say some, it's not massively important to me how much I have, but I think that I do need to have a break and to have some time away from the screen or from meetings or whatever I'm doing in the day, just to kind of at least have a bit of a reset. I think that it could be just a drink and something small to eat, piece of fruit or something like that. It doesn't have to be a huge quantity, but I think that it does matter to me. So I think I wouldn't describe it as a meal in the sense of kind of quantity, but certainly a moment to eat. And then usually we'll have a family meal each evening as well. We do. I think a lot of it is partly based around sort of the meeting the needs of everyone, but at the same time those times do seem to suit me well. I don't eat beyond I sort of very rarely have anything to eat beyond my meal in the evening, because I find that doesn't help support me sleep. But I do find that having the porridge in the morning is the kind of thing that I look forward to it. I cook it slowly in the morning, and I enjoy eating it slowly, and sort of we get up quite early, far earlier than we actually need to sort of leave the house on time, because I actually enjoy that kind of taking the time and sort of winding into it. So it in part is partly just part of my morning routine, if you like.
So I've kind of fallen unwittingly or knowingly, and I've kind of retrospectively figured out what it is that I do or how to classify it. I kind of fell into this naturally cycle of what's called OMAD, which is 1 meal a day. So Monday to Friday, and generally on the weekends too, I have 1 meal a day. So I have an eating window between 4:30 and 5:30, generally speaking, and that's where I will have a main meal, and I will have anything that I want to have on the periphery of that. So this afternoon I had some vegetable curry, some rice, I had a cup of tea, I had a little bit of ice cream, and I had some wasabi almonds, right? So it's not as if like I'm denying my body all of the treats and all of the things. It's just that I'm kind of putting those into a window, and I'm making sure that I'm having certain types of foods first, and then I'm having a few potential treats on top of that if I still kind of feel like it. I'm big anti-snacks now. I'm like super anti-snacks. Like I don't, and this used to really wind me up when you go to like corporate functions, or there's some consultancy stuff that I do, and you go to like some different places to kind of do some work, and it's like you get there and it's like donuts and coffee, and then 10:30 it's like muffins and coffee, and then 12 it's your lunch, and then 2 p.m. it's like some other sweet things and some tea or whatever, and then they give you something to take home. So it's like if you had it their way, you'd be eating stuff like every couple of hours, and it was just like, it's crazy. And so now like I do have snack items from time to time, but I don't have snacks. I'm like pretty personally against snacks. I don't think they have much value for me personally. So are you a snacker? Do you have snacks? And if you do, what do you have?
Not particularly. To be honest, I think it's just the habits that you form, like you said earlier, when you're growing up and stuff like that, really, isn't it? So, yeah, I think not really. No, but arguably, a lot of it comes down to the fact that I'm not really keen on buying stuff that's particularly processed. I don't like stuff that's in an individual wrapper and you have to throw that away. I think that's wasteful and pointless. I'd rather just make homemade food from ingredients, and so therefore that's my focus really in terms of the food.
And let's stick around there as well, because that was another part of my journey, is that I've already kind of talked a little bit about it with the Chicago Town Pizza and Findus Lasagna, and I'm pretty sure that those guys, they're super tasty if you like that sort of thing, and I'm not here to poo-poo it, and I mentioned certain company brands, but I'm sure they're not going to chase me down and kind of get me for
You're not going to get that crispy pancake sponsor now, are you?
But I also think about McDonald's, and I see that stuff as non-food. I don't see it as food. It's not for me, in my opinion. Like McDonald's food is not made for me. It's made for somebody else to make a profit, right? And they make it just sneakily, suspectfully tasty enough from my brain's perspective to make it desirable. But I just see it as a non-food item. And so the second part of my journey was to kind of think about what I'm actually putting inside my body, like what am I actually consuming? And the thought process behind that was that if we take like any like ecosystem, like maybe like a coral reef or like a forest, or like an English meadow. Okay, there's an ecosystem, right? It's like that ecosystem is in a balance. And things that naturally occur within that ecosystem, they coexist with the things that are in that environment. You've got a certain amount of prey animals or prey items. You've got grass. The grass is eaten by a rabbit. The rabbit is eaten by the fox, and so on and so forth. Right? I kind of feel the same thing with my body in some ways. Is that it's an ecosystem that's in a balance, and when we introduce things into that system, it's going to have a potential effect. And I think there's lots of things that we just introduce into our body that may have no effect. They may have a positive effect, and they may have a negative effect. And I don't know if we know as human beings enough about the things that we introduce into our bodies to know the long-term positive or negative effects to them. So if we think about all of the chemicals that are involved in food, so if you take like a good example is like a Twinkie, right, which is like kind of a processed cake that exists in America, and it's got cream in. But obviously we know that if you don't keep cream in the fridge, it goes bad very, very quickly. Dairy products not kept refrigerated go bad very, very quickly. And even if you keep them in the fridge, they still go bad fairly quickly. But this cake has got cream, and I'm kind of doing inverted commas, so I've got cream in. Right. But it doesn't need to be refrigerated, and it lasts for a long time. So certain things have been added to that to increase its longevity, right? And I don't know the effect of that stuff that it has on my body. So I don't really want to consume it because I don't think that I actually need that. I don't think that my body needs that. I don't think that my body requires that. And I don't believe that that's a naturally occurring thing. And I know or believe that when you introduce something unnatural into a natural environment, it tends to have a general negative effect, right? So what are your thoughts on kind of like ultra processed foods and maybe natural or whole foods? Like, do you have an ethos on that?
Yeah, very much. So my preference is always, like you say, for the kind of natural whole food thing. And I think there's an element of a kind of some concern around negative effects of some of these kind of chemical based things that I do feel like would take quite a lot of time to work through us as a species before we start being able to measure the effects of them. And some of the effects and some of the changes that we're seeing in human beings may be associated with, the past 70 or 80 years of kind of intensive food production. They might be, I don't know. I'm not here to say they are or they're not. I've no idea. I can't really, my perspective on it is that if you introduce something, like you say, that kind of shelf-stable cream that is obviously a kind of chemical variation on a real product, it may be absolutely fine, completely benign. It might be quite bad for you, but one thing it's unlikely to be is actively good for you or better. And so I think that I don't have the knowledge. I haven't got the information. The huge megacorps that run the world are highly unlikely to tell me the information. Yeah. So I'm not here to sort of say, oh, it's all awful or it's all terrible, but it's highly unlikely to be better than a more simple, natural, whole food diet. And so I think if you can buy, organic vegetables, yes, they cost a bit more money, but they're more likely to be better for you. So I kind of always err on that side of things. So I don't have the evidence. I don't have the knowledge. My suspicion is it's probably not great. A bit like you're saying here, Dan, it's like, we don't know this stuff. So why don't you err on the side of what feels natural and what feels better?
But it also feels better. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Yeah. And with that, I think the other side of it is, if you eat nutritious food that you believe to be natural, I think you feel better about it. And then you have that kind of, even if it's a placebo, who cares?
Yeah,
that's going to make you feel better too.
And like I don't want to be a little bit gross here, but like when I have like some meals that some people might consider to be really delicious, like pizza or like burger and fries and like those kind of like super desirable, oh my god, they're so good. When I have those things, I tend to find my movements the day after. I'm trying to talk about things without being gross, but when I go to the bathroom the next day, it's a less pleasant and easy experience than if I have natural, healthy whole foods, right? When I have like whole, healthy, natural occurring things, I tend to find that just my general feeling day to day, including when I go to the bathroom, is just a lot more level, smooth, and just comfortable. Whereas if I find that I have what I would consider to be bad foods, that is desirable at the time and it feels good at the time to kind of sit and eat a pizza, but I just feel worse after. Like I remember I would go out for a meal, like in America especially, and it'd have like bottomless soda, or you might have like endless chicken wings, or like bottomless pancakes, and that sounds great. And you go to like IHOP, the International House of Pancakes in America, IHOP, and it'd be like they just fill your coffee up loads. You have like 10 coffees, and you'd buy like some pancakes, and you come with 5 pancakes, and then you just keep on asking for more, and they keep on giving you more. That sounds amazing. But I would just feel so full and sick and just like slovenly, right? For like the rest of that day. And you kind of think, yeah, this is great, but then it's not great. And it is a little bit boring. Like I'll tell you about the meal that I have, like generally speaking during the week, it's like lentils, broccoli, cauliflower, like cumin, apple cider vinegar, and I don't think we've got time to talk about why I have that, and that's an interesting story in itself. But that's what I try to generally have as my breakfast, as in like the break my fast. I tend to have that as my breakfast when I have my when I break my fast and have my one meal a day. That's what I tend to have first, and then if I'm still not satiated at the end of that, that's when I'll add on the little extras. But I found that when I eat that stuff, I just feel more comfortable, more level, and level is probably the best word to say. I just feel more on the level, I think. And so how do you feel in terms of, energy levels and feeling throughout a day? Do you feel like pretty consistent with your approach to energy and how you feel?
Yeah, pretty good. I think that 99% of the time when I feel that, I've got a bit of a dip of some description, it's that I'm thirsty and I just need water. And I think that that's not to be underestimated. And I think that keeping hydrated is like phenomenal. Yeah. And I think that it's so hard to kind of really rationalize how good for you water is, and how important it is above all else. I drink sort of maybe have 2 cups of tea a day, and other than that it's water. I don't drink. I'm coming at this from kind of, like I said at the top of the interview, really, I'm coming at it from quite a different perspective, because I didn't really kind of particularly grow up. I think it's perhaps my mum was particularly interested in kind of eating well and so on. So we did eat healthily as kids.
But you just doing it. You was doing it because that's the norm, as opposed to unlearning.
I think so. Yeah. So I think there are certain things when you're talking about, that bottomless pizza, and I'm thinking that sounds gross. I would never go somewhere like that myself. And I don't really like fizzy drinks. I don't drink alcohol particularly, and so I'm kind of I'm sort of, I must have been brought up, the Blackadder sketch where the family come, who are the Puritans, and they just want turnips or parsnips or something like that. Yeah, and that I think was kind of my upbringing. So I think that there's an element of me being kind of not particularly interested in some of this rich stuff, and I find it's really off-putting actually. So I'm quite lucky, aren't I?
No,
really?
It's good though. But it's good to speak to someone with a different perspective. So if you take like I think that I've now largely rewired my brain. So when before I might have like some Oreo cookies, right, or something.
Okay, yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Like I would go to the supermarket and I would buy what I consider to be healthy food, but like we're just accustomed to believe that like mass-produced, ultra-processed stuff it's not that bad because it's in a supermarket. It's there. If it was that bad, then they wouldn't be there, right?
Yeah.
But this realization that when I'm eating like an Oreo or whatever it was, and don't get me wrong, I'm not like smashing like an entire thing. Maybe I like two or three like after dinner or whatever. It's like, I don't think that's good. So I've started to rewire my brain to be like, instead of having that mass-produced, ultra-processed thing, I'll have a banana. And I'll have a handful of roasted, unsalted cashew nuts. And I get excited, just as excited as like that, seeing that as a treat. Because everyone wants a treat. Like, you want a treat. You don't want to deny yourself. You don't want to abstain from every single thing in your life because it's not a very rich tapestry then. But I've started to rewire my brain into thinking that I'm seeing things that I didn't see as a treat before as a treat, right? Like a banana is a nice treat. A handful of cashew nuts is a nice treat. And one of the key things we did, the first step to this, is instead of buying store-bought stuff, it's like, if we really want cookies, make them. Are they healthy? I don't believe so, but at least you know what's gone in it. Right. Yeah,
and also I think that you value it in a different way, don't you? Because you're not just going to wolf them all down. You're going to take your time. You're going to talk about them. You're going to kind of enjoy it and digest them differently. So, and you're not going to do it every single day because it's too much work.
Yes, and you're right. Yeah. And so that stopped us having a lot of unhealthy treats because it's like, I can't be asked making it.
Yeah.
So it was like, can't we bother making it? We use the last of the sugar on the weekend, so unlucky. So yeah, and it's like there's you mentioned before about kind of soda and pop as well, like that. It's like I pretty much only drink water and black coffee now. That's pretty much the only two things I drink, and it's like it was difficult to stop drinking soda at a certain time because I'd become accustomed to drinking it. And don't get me wrong, I'm not drinking like a litre a day, but I would have it. But I do have it from time to time. But when I have it now, it's amazing. Like when I had a root beer the other week, an Abita root beer. So Abita is like a Louisiana brewing company, and it's called Abita. So when I have an Abita root beer, it's amazing. I savor it. I cherish it. I really, really enjoy it. And I kind of don't want to have it too much because it's a genuine, it's a super high level crazy treat that I have. That's really good. And so that's kind of, we talked about two areas there, and I know our time is kind of rapidly diminishing, and there's so many things that I feel I want to talk about, but let's just do a little bit of a recap there. So we would kind of talk about, like, when you eat regularly. I only eat one meal a day, and it doesn't.
It's still regularly though, isn't it? It's
yeah. But we won't have time to come on this, but there's times where I've gone. I regularly go 48 hours without eating regularly.
Okay.
And I also semi-regularly, so maybe once a quarter, I do like a kind of 4-day fast where I have only water and black coffee for a 4-day period. And when I break my fast for after, like, say 4 days, I don't tend to be breaking it because I'm really genuinely ravenously hungry. I'm eating because my brain is like, come on, you should be eating now. Yeah. Come on. I'm not doing it because my body feels really exhausted. And I'd ask people to maybe try that to see, because people still think that I'm pretty crazy. Like when I talk about fasting and having one meal a day and only drinking water and only drinking black coffee and hot water, I drink hot water. So in the afternoons I never drink coffee because I don't want to drink coffee in the afternoon. But if I want something hot, drinking something hot for me feels like I'm getting a treat. It feels like it's like a British thing, in terms of drinking tea, right? But I don't want to break my fast by having certain things, so I'm just having hot water. So I'd encourage people to just try the fasting thing, because just try it and see, because I've just naturally fallen into it because I just stopped eating when I wasn't hungry, and I've just fallen into that. And now it's no drama at all. Like I know that I can go 48 hours without eating. Like not even think about it. Like not even. It's not a chore. It's not a torture. And 3 days really easy too. But I tend to be eating just because my brain's like, everyone else is eating, just eat now. You've done 3.5 days. You've done 4 days. Just eat now. But you eat regularly. You eat more than 2 times a day. It sounds. You got your porridge in the morning. You got your regular meal at night, and then you put some stuff in the middle, right? So it's key to note is that we're not saying you must do that. You must do that. But what I can say is that the habit that I've got into, it makes me feel not significantly, but it makes me feel loads better than what I was doing previously, because what I was doing previously, I felt sluggish, I felt lethargic, I didn't feel healthy, I didn't feel good.
Right.
So I just started taking some stuff away and changing some different bits, and now I feel loads better.
I think there's real merit in it. Any time that you want to do something, you need to kind of think about how you're going to measure those changes, don't you? So you had an input. You were like, I'm not feeling great. I want to make some changes, and then you started doing that, and then you were being able to kind of evidence that and go, yeah, that worked for me. That was good. I think it's kind of important that people don't try and change too many things all at once, or make too many assumptions about how they actually feel, and you kind of. You need to kind of get a sense of, okay, what would I like to get to? What are my aspirations, and how do I do that?
We're talking over a period of 9 years, like messing about.
Yeah,
I didn't just like say, that's it, 1 meal a day on a Sunday night, and then do it. We're talking about,
which is what the kind of influencery people on the internet would try and want you to do, wouldn't they? Be quite impulsive and kind of latch on to a new fad or a new thing, and you're not talking about that.
No. And then we also talked about like what we eat and what we put into our bodies, and I wouldn't I'm not like, don't get me wrong, I'm not like eating raw whole foods for every single meal, and I'm only eating things that drop off a tree or that nature has given up. And if you do that, then that's great. I'm not poo-pooing it. I know I'm having a bit of a chuckle, but that's because I've got a friend that's like that. He says he'll never eat anything. He'll never eat anything that had a face, and he never really cooks anything. So all the things he eats are like raw. Like, I don't want to go too far in that direction, but maybe that is the way. But what I do try and do is I try and make sure that, like I said, I don't believe, and this is just my belief, I don't believe that a lot of ultra-processed food is made for my benefit. I think it's made for an organization's benefit. Going back to the Twinkie thing, why is that good? Because they can make it. It stays fresh, or I say fresh, it stays edible for a long amount of time, so they can transport it, they can distribute it, they can make profit on it for a long time. So I don't think that food is made for me, and I don't mind giving someone money to buy food. That's not the problem, but I'm trying to think about whose best interests are at heart with these things that I'm consuming and things that I'm eating. But it is important to note is that I do treat myself from time to time, especially over a weekend. I'll go and have some pizza, or I'll go and do this, because I don't want to abstain from everything that I consider to be desirable. I want to give myself a little bit of a break, but what I find is that if I'm very strict Monday through Friday, or generally speaking Monday through Friday, I'm a heck of a lot stricter. On the weekend I can kind of kick back a little bit, but I still only try and break my fast once over a weekend.
Right, okay, yeah. It's really, it sounds, now, do you find that you have to be disciplined, or has it just become a routine now? Sometimes
I do. Sometimes I feel like I have to be disciplined, but I think there's a certain satisfaction in that. When I do abstain from stuff, and I manage to push through that, it feels good after the event. That kind of delayed gratification thing. But sometimes I do crack. Sometimes I do crack, and I'll have a little bit of ice cream during the week. Or I have a little bit of something else. Like I said, I had the wasabi almonds today. But I have found that rewiring my brain to kind of find things that I didn't think were particularly desirable before are more desirable now. So now, like instead of having like a chocolate bar, or instead of having some ultra processed cookies, like I'm having a banana and a handful of cashew nuts, and I get pretty excited. Get pretty excited by that, as much as you can do, if that kind of makes sense. But is there any books that you've read, or is there any kind of literature that you've kind of picked up that kind of have helped you with your journey, or is all the stuff that you do just naturally occurring that you got taught as a kid?
Yeah, no, not. I mean, to be honest, I don't really read any non-fiction at all. Actually, I'm just I'm simply kind of following my nose, I think. And like you say, just following on from we've sort of recently, in sort of past few years, become vegetarian, which we weren't previously, my wife and I. The kids still eat meat. So it kind of means making different food in the evening meals, or food that can be kind of varied and so on. Feel better for that. I feel like you can get plenty of sustenance from, pulses, mushrooms, those kind of things. I don't find that's a barrier, and I feel better and healthier. But again, it was just a sort of quite fairly organic decision. So yeah, none of this stuff is coming from a kind of external source or a kind of body of knowledge. It's very much just
how you feel,
how I feel, and I think a lot of it comes down to as well. Just actually, I get quite a lot of pleasure out of, like every Sunday I'll make a loaf of bread, and so I don't not eat bread. We do eat bread through the week and for sandwiches and various things like that. And I look forward to it because the homemade bread is really nice. I mean, so I'll have some today for my lunch, because it's considerably nicer than shop bought bread. It hasn't got loads of chemicals in. It's not got anything like that. And I like bothering to do that at the weekend. So for me, a lot of it is actually not really derived out of, oh, I better do this, or that would be better for me. That might not be my thinking. It's more like, oh yeah, I'd like to do that. So yeah, my interest in cooking and my interest in food is very much like the driver rather than a kind of barrier.
Yeah, it's really important to think about it, and you're kind of doing these things that naturally occur, and it's great that you've had that formative experience, and it's great that you've got that support within your family, it seems, and also your own interest that kind of keeps that going, and but I don't think that you're typical. I wish that you were.
No, I think that's true.
I wish that you were. Like, I wish that it was the norm. I wish that we did kind of say, no, instead of buying those shop bought cookies, I'm gonna make my own, or I'm gonna have a banana, or I'm gonna have an apple and a banana, and or I'm gonna have an apple, banana, and a handful of raspberries, because I think that an apple, a banana, and a handful of raspberries, I think, are going to be significantly better for you than the same amount in terms of grams as something that's ultra processed. But
I would say that for me, I'd say that that's tastier as well. I'd say I would prefer that. So I think that that's an element of it. It's like, well, okay, so at what point did these things that were natural suddenly become a bit boring? Because 100 years ago, people would have fought you in the street for some raspberries at this time of year, wouldn't they? Do you know what I mean? It's like they're great. Of course, they're great.
Yeah, but that's the thing, isn't it? It's just weird how it shakes out, right? It's weird. Yeah. It's weird how it shakes out. Like, if you think about like a chicken nugget versus something else, it's like it's not that alluring, a chicken nugget.
They're terrible
in the cold light of day. But having said that, I do smash some chicken nuggets from time to time, but I think it's really important to abstain from that stuff for as much as possible. Again, I just don't think it's great for us. But just before we round the conversation out, as kind of, I feel we could talk for hours and hours more. We've kind of recapped what we talked about so far, and I hope that it's been helpful, and I hope that some people have maybe it's just maybe they're just I've got a particular friend that would be yelling at the speakers, I'll do what I want, you shut up. And I think that's good. I think that if you're making more of an informed choice about what you do or you don't want to do, I think then that's brilliant. And if you want to double down on a lifestyle that you already have, and that's what makes you feel good, and that's what you want to do, you should definitely do that. Like, I've got a friend, and he's like, I want to squeeze every ounce out of life that I can. So I want to eat the burger, I want to eat the pizza, I don't want to drink the 10 beers. I want to do that because that's what I want to do, and that's what makes me feel good. Like, do that. What I'm saying is, and what you seem to be saying is that that's not the way for me, that's not the way for us, so I'm finding my own way that makes me...
That's all you can do. That is all you can do, you're right.
But one last thing I want to talk to you about is I want to talk to you about alcohol. Are you a drinker of alcohol at all? Do you partake?
No. So, no, not really. I never really have been. Yeah, it's just one of those things, isn't it? I think it's socially quite a cultural thing in some societies. In others, it's not. and that kind of matters because, human beings clearly don't need it. And no, it's just not something that's really on my radar, particularly.
Ever?
And
Like literally ever? Is it something you've been out of, then into, then out of again, or has literally never been on the agenda?
not really, no. I think it's just not really sort of part of my life particularly.
Good.
And
again, I wish that was
to the point where. Yeah, to the point where I would say that, I'd probably classify myself as someone who doesn't do it, but that isn't actually sort of completely true. It's just that it's just very rare and not really particularly important to me. I don't know why, really.
Because I think it's bad. I think it's bad for you.
Well, it is. Well, of course it is. It's like literally a toxin, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Like in a very absolute way, of course it's bad for you. Yeah.
But like, if you think about like what happens is that when you drink alcohol, it has to be cleaned out your system, and that's most notably your liver that does that. And I think that if my liver is having to take its energy from just its normal job that's naturally occurring to then processing this toxin that I'm putting into my body, I just think that I'm working it too hard. And if I think about any item that I've ever had, like, I don't know, like a bicycle or a car or a television or like, I don't know, a tin opener, it's like general wear and tear on those items occurs. And so if I have this consumable item in my body that's called my liver, then I need to kind of look after that. Because if I overwork it and I overuse it, then it might potentially break down quicker than I want to. And I don't believe that many people get a replacement liver. It's not like a fridge or like a new tire for your car, right? So it's like I've got this finite resource, and it is a finite resource. I don't know how it works, too much. I don't know how much it renews itself or like, things like that. But I do believe that alcohol is a toxin. I do believe that my body has to work hard to clean that out of my system, and so I've started to abstain from drinking a lot. I've never been a heavy drinker. I would never say that I've been a heavy drinker. I've been a social drinker, as a kind of like as a young adult, kind of into probably around age 30. But again, same thing. I started to question and be like, just don't like having a hangover. I like having a nice time. I like socializing. But I don't know what any of that has got to do with actual alcohol. It's just something that occurs when socialization occurs, in the same way that it's like, am I eating because I'm hungry, or am I just eating because it's eating time? It's like, am I drinking alcohol because I actually want to drink alcohol, or am I drinking alcohol because it's the alcohol drinking time? And this and one of the key things that happened to me is that I'm a big football fan, big soccer fan. Go to lots of soccer games as a kid and as an adult, and now I live abroad, so I don't really get a chance to do that. But whenever I'm back in England, I'll go to any football game for my team I'll go to. And I went with my mates to watch an away game, and you pile into a local pub near the soccer stadium, and everyone gets a beer. So I hadn't been for a while, so I was like, right lads, I'll get the beers, and you're like, hey, thanks for done, because I've not been there. So I got everyone else a beer, and I got like an orange squash. And that was a push, because I was like, I don't really want orange squash because it's got sugar in it and it's mass produced. But I was like, I don't want to get absolute pelters, so I'll get a squash. I didn't want to get a Coke either, so I didn't want to get
a hot water.
yeah. So I got some squash because I thought that would be acceptable, and that's the least worst thing that I could think of. And I just got absolute dog abuse for ages, because it was like, what you doing with that squash? And someone went to the bar and bought me a beer and forced me to drink a beer because that was the social norm. So that kind of makes sense. And it was all good natured, don't get me wrong, but what I found is that it doesn't really add too much to my life, really, the drinking. And so like, there's probably once every 3 weeks I'll have a couple of beers, because that's just what I want to do, and I actually quite like having a cold beer from time to time. I think it's just like a nice taste thing, but I don't really desire to be drunk. I don't desire to, I don't think that, people talk about inhibitions and you can be yourself when you're drunk and all that kind of stuff. I don't generally tend to believe in that kind of stuff, and so I've kind of like stopped drinking like pretty much 90% of the time. I just don't really think it adds too much value to my life.
I think the other thing with these drinks is the mass-produced stuff is, it's made in the same way as those Twinkies are made. It's made to be cheap. It's made to last a long time, be transportable. Yeah, it's just a load of calories. It's not it's not high quality stuff, is it? So I think if you're going to say, well, I really want to try that thing and it happens to be alcoholic, then that's a very different perspective to, I need to go and find some alcohol to drink. And I think that those two thoughts are not the same by any means.
Yeah. But even if you separate the alcohol from the calorific value, so if you think about beer is calorific because of the hops, because of the barley, because of those things. It's like there's two sides to that coin. So I've had a few friends that kind of like say, I don't want to have the calories, so they'll drink like whiskey or something. But then it's the alcohol that's the toxic part of it. And so if you drink whiskey, it's still the same effect to your body, and your liver's still having to work really hard. So
they're two parallel concepts, aren't they? What are you thinking about? Yeah, because occasionally I've had some of the alcohol-free beers, and I think that some of them are quite nice, and some of them I've enjoyed. But they're not healthy seeming in a sort of general way, are they? Because of course they're not.
Yeah. So there's three things we talked about there. I don't necessarily want to bring up anything new now because
it's interesting.
Our time is running out. But it's a very interesting conversation, and just to kind of recap those three things again, is that like taking some time to think about when you eat, why are you eating? Do you genuinely actually want to eat here, or are you just eating because it's a socially constructed time to eat? And then the second thing is thinking like, what are you actually eating, and how does the things that you are eating make you feel? When it goes in, how is it feeling? When it's in the system, how is it making you feel? And also when it's on its way out, how is it making you feel? And then also the final thing is this idea of alcohol, and it's like, for me personally, I don't think alcohol has got anything that's associated. There's nothing to do with like socialization and alcohol that means that I have to do those things. I can't socialize without that.
It can be separated.
It's like there's nothing that you call it being mutually exclusive, right? There's nothing that's mutually exclusive between alcohol and fun, for example. Like there's nothing that I can only have fun when I have alcohol. I can only do that when I can have alcohol. I don't feel that personally. But we're not here to say you should or you should not do that. What we're here to do is just kind of like maybe give some people some food for thought to validate someone's feelings. Someone that's been on the same path as us or a similar parallel path to us. It kind of validates some of those things, and maybe it gives other people like pause for thought, some food for thought, or a point of reflection. So even if you think about it and go, nah, I love smashing the beers, then at least you've got more of an informed choice on it, and you maybe think about it before you're just doing these things, because it's so easy just to do things that other people want us to do, like an organization or a corporation or some sort of profit-making entity wants us to do, as opposed to we are actually doing it because we want to do it, compared to we're doing it that's because just everyone does, like that pub example, right? It's like I was forced to drink beer good-naturedly because that's just what everyone did, I didn't really actually want to, but I went with it because I was like, oh, okay lads, all right, no problem, it's all good. But I couldn't just have my squash, which I didn't even want the squash in the first place, but I thought this is the least worst thing to do. But anyway, mate, that's enough for us. And I just want to kind of note a couple of books. I'm not sure if I mentioned this one already, but there's a book that's called Ultra Processed People, which is a book that I read that is pretty good. And then there's also another book called The Obesity Code, which is really good. Those are two really good books that I've read that kind of gave my thinking a little bit of validation and also gave me some new information. But it's also important to note is that just because it's in a book doesn't necessarily mean that it's true or factual, and there's certain fads that exist in history. A good example that I didn't mention before is cigarettes. There was a time that people thought smoking cigarettes was really good for you, and what has history taught us? No, it's not. It's really bad for
absolutely,
you. And that kind of links in with what we were saying before about some of the chemicals or certain things that we're putting in our body. I don't think we have a long enough timeline of its usage to ascertain the data, or to figure out the data about whether it is good or bad for us.
I think it's just, for me, it's just, if you can just think, okay, I'm not going to become a conspiracy theorist, so I'm not going to panic about everything. But what I am going to do is maintain a level of kind of quiet cynicism, where I say, well, something that's not really natural may be fine, or it might be bad, but it's unlikely to be great. And I think that's a good, for me, that's a decent perspective point to come from, where I kind of just quietly cynical about it and just think, nah, it doesn't seem natural. I don't think so. I think the other kind of related thing to kind of close on from me would be that the idea of living or eating cleanly, is enjoyable and isn't puritanical or difficult, or you don't have to be Blackadder's aunt and uncle. You can enjoy it, and I think that that's something that there's value in, is just actually go, no, I like it, it's fun, I enjoy it, or it's social or whatever. It doesn't have to be an either or.
Yeah, there's a quote from Chris Pratt that Chris Pratt is the guy that is in lots of Hollywood movies now, and in his earlier days he was like not necessarily obese or even overweight, but you'd never consider him to be like in trim. And he talked about how he first started getting like Hollywood roles in terms of like lead stars in big films. So he's like the voice of Super Mario. He's been in some Marvel films, and he talked about how like he changed his diet, and he was saying that he used to eat like 5 cheeseburgers. And when he was eating the 5 cheeseburgers, he'd be like, oh, this is great. Oh, I'm having a great time. This is so good. I'm eating 5 cheeseburgers. But then he would say, for the rest of the day and the next day, he'd feel terrible. He felt like, oh, I'm so lethargic. Oh, I'm so full. Oh, I'm so uncomfortable. And then he said he started changing his mindset. And what he found is that when he started eating cleaner and healthier, it was kind of boring to eat the vegetables and the broccoli. It maybe wasn't as exciting as eating the cheeseburgers from his perspective. But he said, instead of just feeling good when I was eating this thing, it was the hours between the meals that were so much better. So instead of feeling gross and horrible and unhealthy after he'd eaten the cheeseburgers, he was feeling clean and lighter and healthier and all that kind of stuff. And he was saying that it went from feeling good for the 40 minutes that I was eating to feeling good for like the 23 hours between eating. And that's an important thing to note, is that it's like this abstaining from certain things. It makes you feel better for significantly longer in the day, as opposed to like going out for a meal and eating 3 courses. It's like a 3-course meal. I just don't believe that people need a 3-course meal, in my opinion. And it's like, when I have a 3-course meal, it's just like too much food, too much stuff.
Yeah, I couldn't finish it. No way.
Yeah, and so that's a really good quote. I think it's like you went from enjoying the eating part and feeling worse after that to eating cleaner, and that's neutral, maybe a bit boring, but you feel so much better for the 23 hours, if that
so it's actually a massive net gain, isn't it? Yeah. In terms of like pleasure, if you like, rather than just in terms of health. It's a net gain in terms of actual enjoyment. Oh, that's good. Yeah. Oh, nice.
So well, thanks for your time, man. I really appreciate it. And if you've been listening along to this, if you're listening and you kind of like you've been on your own journey and you've done your own things, like there's so many more things that I've tried over this kind of decade period that I just didn't have time to kind of introduce and talk about. There's so many more things, but if you've listened to it and you've enjoyed it and you've been on your own journey, like give me a shout. I'd be quite happy to talk to Mark again about this. I enjoy talking to you about things. You always got a philosophical view, and you got your own perspective on things that you don't mind sharing. Or then equally, if you would like to talk to me, you listen along and you'd like to talk to me about it, I like talking about these different things, because I think it's really important to make informed choices for as many things as you can in your life. And I think it's always also really important to be open-minded to listen to different people's perspectives on certain things, so that even if you decide to do the thing that you were doing anyway, you're just making it from a much kind of stronger position of, like I said, an informed choice position, as opposed to just doing stuff because that's what people do. You know what I mean? It's like, how many smokers back in the day would be smoking cigarettes just because people smoked? How many people back in the day would be drinking loads of beers because that's people just drink loads of beers? And we can't guarantee that those things that people are doing are good for us. And I don't want to die. I want to kind of stay alive for as long as I can, right? So why aren't I taking control of that instead of just doing this stuff that other people want us to do, right? Without wearing a tinfoil hat.
Yeah, I would say that the generation of kids coming through who I see at schools and I see in my own children are more interested in this, in being healthy and living well, which is great.
Good. All right, mate. Well, thanks a lot for your time.
Okay, good on you.
Appreciate it, and speak to you again soon.
Yeah, cheers, Dan. Thanks, mate.
There you go, episode 274 all wrapped up there. Thanks to Mark for coming on to the show. Always great to have a conversation with you, Mark, if you're listening along as a post-Ramble Rambler, and I'm sure a lot of you guys that listen along really appreciate hearing from Mark. Also, he's definitely got an interesting perspective on things, and it's one that doesn't always, not in a negative way, it's not always the same. We have very different perspectives on stuff. Just listening to him talk about diet and choices, it really shows that he's got a very different background to myself, which is fantastic. So I always enjoy talking to different people who've got very different perspectives. Seems like a lot of the stuff that Mark does, the choices that he made, are just kind of like ingrained from a very young age, whereas a lot of stuff that I'm doing has to be like, hard won later in life. I'm not saying it was easy for him, but he kind of got into some really great habits. A younger version of himself got into some really great habits, and I'm still trying to break that. It's really important to note that when you reflect on stuff, is that I'm not perfect. I'm really not perfect, and there's lots of things that I continue to play around with and mess around with. And it's fun. It's like a hobby. Turned it into a hobby. I kind of gamified it. I mentioned that in the pre-show, right? In the pre-ramble that I try and gamify it. It's like, what can I do that is just not doing something? And it's easier to not do something, right? Quite often in life when we don't do anything, that's quite easy, right? Depending on what it is. And then also if something could save you money too. So I kind of gamified it a little bit. I'm trying to find different things that save me money and that are just not doing. And so like not eating, that's a really great example. So like, and don't get me wrong, like I'm not eating, I'm not like starving, hungry, and I'm choosing not to eat and it's a big chore. It's like, I mentioned it in the show, I'm not really hungry at breakfast time. So don't eat, and that's great because it saves me money and I don't have to do something. Same thing at lunchtime, just don't eat at lunchtime because I just don't either feel hungry, or when I do eat at lunchtime I just feel kind of like, slow and lethargic. So again, brilliant, saves me money and it's not doing something. So it's just finding all those things, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that I've tried and I'm still always looking. So if you've tried a whole bunch of things and you've found a whole bunch of things that really work for you, then please let me know. I'd be delighted to listen along and potentially try it out. One of the things that I've not found a perfect solution for is like vitamins, minerals, and different things like supplements that could potentially take. Especially as you get older, there's certain things like my granddad, he's over 90 now, and he still does swear by like cod liver oil. I remember he had this big jar of cod liver oil and he used to have like a spoonful of it a day, and he used to chase us around his house. You go around to his house and if you were there when he was having his cod liver oil, he used to be like, do you want some of this? And I'm not sure if this is actually true, but I remember it being like molasses, so it was like a kind of brown, syrupy, goopy stuff. And I was like, I don't want to have any of it. But so he swears by that, like cod liver oil. So if you've got like a really good regimen with nutrients and things like that, and you know exactly what you're doing with it, and you can add some success, let me know. Because I've tried a few different things, but I never really found something that really seems to be awesome. So let me know if you got something. I'd be really interested to know. Hobby stuff, what is happening with me? Not a lot at all. Just this week we have been on holiday and with a few different other bits, between kind of Christmas and New Year. So nothing really been going on, nothing exciting in the slightest. I think that's enough of the post ramble. Normal service will be resumed next week. I speak to the creator of Void Fighter and Space Weirdos, Mr. Casey Garsky. He comes onto the show next week, and I'm struggling for guests for the new year. I've been really thinking about who might be some interesting guests for the new year, and I need to spend some time over the next week or so really sending some emails and trying to think about who might be interesting to talk to. But let me know if you've got a guest in mind, someone that you think might be really interesting to talk to. Let me know, because I've got a whole bunch of people on the invitation list, but I don't know, just no one's kind of jumping out and slapping me around the chops right now to kind of get involved in our conversation. So give me some inspiration if you want to keep the ball rolling. I think I've got about 7 or 8 podcasts still in the bank, so we've still got time yet. We've got about a couple of months before we run out. But let me know if you've got an interesting idea for a guest, someone that's got an interesting perspective on stuff. That's enough for the post ramble. Hope you guys are okay. Hope you guys had a good Christmas and New Year if you celebrate those sorts of things. And until next time we're together, keep painting.